This is a book I checked out from the library. Herbert Draper. It's a sort of a career biography. Uh, the reason I checked it out is because it's like $150 if you try to buy it, and I mean it's a good book, but it's not worth that. So what the first part of it has all the color plates, which is the uh, the paintings, the major paintings he did, and that's on the first section. And he was an academic artist. He did the mythological stuff. I've been sort of discovering that the academics, because they weren't really taught to us in undergrad, or of course they were an anathema to the postmodernists that taught well, that I went to graduate school under. But he mostly did mythological stuff for the most first part of his career, but that was the style. This was Victorian England. He was British. He was influenced by the academics, the French academics. He's kind of stylized, I think, when I'm looking at him. His figures are, the text says it's idealized, and I guess so. They're a little bit elongated, a little bit stylized. He did portraits too, but that happened mostly later when the mythology stuff went out of style. But so this is Icarus, and this is he did a lot of nymphs and naiads and water spirits, I guess. This is the Gates of Dawn. This is Tristan and Isolde, so he does some of this, I guess. Was that opera? I don't know. And then literature. He did some portraits, but they came in later. This is this is the Golden Fleece. So he did Greek literature and mythology. That's Apollo. Well, it says Day in the Dawn Star. So, and then he was definitely into these water spirits. That's his Venus, or Aphrodite, which is the Greek version of Venus, I guess. The Pearls of Aphrodite. This is Ulysses when he was tied to the mast, and Lamia, which I didn't realize she was some sort of almost like a succubus, like a serpent. She was a Greek myth also. And this is the mountain mist, so that's sort of an allegory. And that's his daughter Yvonne, and these are some of the later ones that he did. And I think that's the last mythological painting he did. It didn't really go over too well because by that time it was totally out of style. The water nymphs. This is called the Kelpie. Halcyon. That was a myth about, well, I think her husband died and she was going to commit suicide, and then she turned into a bird or something. That's kind of cool. That one. I like that one. And this was the last mythological one he did. So the book just sort of like narrates his life and his career, and it does like chronologically go through all the paintings and why he chose to do which ones. And then it's got the the preparatory sketches, and he used athletic models more than like the sort of more voluptuous ones that some of his contemporaries, especially the French academics, used. And the book just kind of goes through his career, narrates There's some more preparatory drawings. Like I said, that's a little stiff to me, but I mean, who knows how long that took. That was just probably quick. And it explains, but through a sort of art historian's lens, it does kind of project some conventional wisdom about gender representation and imagery, which I guess is par for the course for art historians. Par for the course for art historians over the last 50 years or so. And it's a good insight into his process, into his career, and it shows, I guess this was one of the last people that made a living sort of doing this kind of image that, where you had to actually have skill to be an artist. You wasn't all just some kind of mind fuck and trying to, be an attention whore just for the sake of being one. There was actually, there was a protocol, there was standards, there was ways to do things that all got thrown out around the time where he was ending up his career. And he died kind of young, in his 50s, I think. But he had sort of seen his, his career end as far as the mythology stuff goes. He did do a lot. He was in demand to do portraits at the end of his career. It's definitely worth taking a look at if you get a chance. This is a painting I did 25 years ago in undergrad. The reason I'm showing it is because this is something that I have that relates to Herbert James Draper thematically, subject matter wise, not necessarily technique or even how it looks. The reason I say that is because Draper did mythology, and mythology, basically, especially Greek mythology, it was a religion. I don't think it's a practiced religion anymore, but it's sort of, still religion. So this is a religious picture I did. It was part of my fulfilling a requirement for a travel grant that I got from John Hope Franklin Center for Documentary Studies at Duke, when my cohort, a group of us went to Cuba in 2000, and the course was titled African Roots of Cuban Culture. And my proposal for the grant was to do a painting of what I would learn about, that subject. And it was on that trip that I pretty much discovered Lukumi, which is a Yoruba-based religion that survived the Atlantic Passage. And it was practiced primarily in Cuba. It's also known as Santeria. So it was basically, this particular image is the patron saint of Cuba, which is the Virgen de Cobre, which is the Virgin Mary in Cobre in Cuba. And there was a sort of story of an actual, I saw the actual figurine statue at the church there. It doesn't look like this, but the story is that it appeared in the ocean and saved the 3 wands in the I think it was the ocean. Anyway, it was a storm, and it appeared and saved them, and each one was named Juan in the boat. One was of African ancestry, one was of European ancestry, and one was indigenous ancestry. So there's some symbolism there, I guess. But anyway, in Lucumí, the Virgen de Cobre also represents Oshun. Oshun is a water entity, an Orisha or Orisha. And Orishas are not gods, or they're sort of intermediaries the way saints are in the Catholic religion, which is why in Lucumí you would sort of, because it was illegal to have an African religion in Cuba during slavery, what would happen is that you would sort of pretend to be venerating a Catholic saint when you were in truth, honoring a Orisha, in this case Oshun. And Oshun, like a lot of Herbert Draper subject matter, is a water entity, and also represents sort of like, I think, love and stuff like that. So what I did was I photographed this is definitely not the academic technique of Draper. What I did was I photographed the same model as Oshun, sort of without the accoutrements, and then as the Virgin with the robes. And then, there's the sort of, I don't know if you've seen in Catholic iconography, that in the cathedrals there's this sort of mantle of the heavens and the stars. So I put that in the spiral and sort of put her there, and then I put Oshun or Ochun in the water part so that they were sort of integrated. And this was done, like I said, this was not done in the academic style of Draper, where he would work from life and do sketches and then transfer sketches and, color sketches, and this whole academic process that I never learned, which I guess I'm trying to figure out now. But at this point, 25 years ago, I was a pretty good photographer, and I sort of prided myself on using my own photography to do sort of almost photorealistic images. And I did grid up the photos, and then I used some references for the water and the constellation. And I did it mostly with airbrush and oil. So you've got to wear a mask when you do that. But and then some of the details, especially like here in this headscarf, I used an actual brush, like a little small brush, to get the little details. So anyway, this is a piece that I showed when I came back from Cuba, and we had to have our presentation for our grant, and of course I was the only one who had done a painting, and it went over pretty well. People kind of actually came up and were looking at it pretty close. So anyway, that's sort of like my tenuous connection to Draper, putting it together after the fact, because of course I had never heard of him when I did this. But for the purpose of this video, I think it relates pretty well. Okay, I just wanted to clarify something. I think I said the John Hope Franklin Center for Documentary Studies, but it's the Center for Documentary Studies at Duke University. And it was the John Hope Franklin Award. So it was awarded by the Center for Documentary Studies. So it was, and I'm not trying to say that I went to Duke either, because it was open to everybody from during that time from different universities, including mine, which is North Carolina Central University. So I just want to clear that up. All right, thanks.